Question number 7, our final question. Do scribal errors and textual variants significantly impact any teaching of Jesus or any important Christian teaching?
Let me start by saying that when Craig says that the following view is a view of skeptics, that we don't have the originals, we have only copies, that thousands of copies have thousands and 10,000s of mistakes, when he calls that the view of skeptics, it's true that is the view of skeptics, and it's the view of non-skeptics. It's the view of every scholar who works in this field, including Craig. Everybody agrees. We don't have the originals, we have thousands of copies, and the thousands of copies have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of differences among them. Are any of these differences important, or are they all fluff? Did Jesus say, "Let the one who is without sin be the first to cast a stone at her"? It's a wonderful and familiar saying of Jesus, but it's based on a scribal variation that is an error. It was not originally in the New Testament Gospels, as Craig has just told us. Did Jesus say, "Neither do I condemn you, go and sin no more"? Well, does it matter whether Jesus said it or not? Turns out it's only in a textual variant. It was not in the original New Testament. Did Jesus say, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to the whole creation. He who believes in me and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not will be condemned"? It's found only in a textual variant. "These are the signs that will accompany those who believe. In my name they will cast out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up serpents. And if they drink any deadly thing, it will not hurt them. They will lay their hands on the sick and they will recover." Does it matter if Jesus said it? It certainly matters to the Christian groups in the Appalachian Mountains who practice snake handling as part of their worship services. Did Jesus give the entire Lord's Prayer or just half of it, as in Luke? Does it matter? It depends on which manuscript you read. Or do other textual variants matter? Does it matter whether the doctrine of the Trinity is explicitly taught in the New Testament? The only verse that comes close to teaching it directly is 1 John chapter 5, verses 7 and 8. There are three that bear witness in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Spirit, and these three are one. Does it matter if that's in the New Testament? Does it matter whether the Gospel of John ever calls Jesus the unique God or not? It's based on a textual variant. Does it matter whether the Gospel of Luke teaches a doctrine of atonement or not? The view that Jesus died for the sake of others. It depends on a textual variant. Does it matter if Jesus was in such agony before his arrest that he sweat blood? It's found in only a single textual variant of the Gospel of Luke. Does it matter that entire words, lines, paragraphs, and pages were left out by some scribes? Does it matter that there are numerous places in the New Testament where scholars cannot decide what the original text said? Does it matter that there are some places where we will never know what the original author said? Does that matter or not? Many evangelical scholars claim that it doesn't matter. But I don't believe them, because these scholars devote their lives to studying the Greek manuscripts. Why would they do that if it doesn't matter? Major evangelical seminaries raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for manuscript projects to study these manuscripts. Why would they do that if it doesn't matter? It does matter. Is the Bible a trustworthy, reliable guide? If so, what if we don't know what it originally said? For some people, these facts don't matter. And if you're one of them, well and good. But if you're someone for whom this does matter, then I would urge you to start reading and start thinking about the Gospels of the New Testament as critical scholars have described them.
Dr. Evans, final question. Do scribal errors and textual variants significantly impact any teaching of Jesus or any important Christian teaching?
There are different levels of mattering. Of course, we scholars are concerned with details, some might say exegetical trivia, and so forth. We love to find new manuscripts. We actually revel over the discovery of a new variant. It gives us an opportunity to write another learned article in a refereed journal. But my point is there are different levels of mattering. Yeah, everything matters. Nothing I'd like more than to find another manuscript. And I'd be terribly disappointed if it was just the same-o without one variant. Give me a couple of fresh variants. That would be exciting. But the point of the question is, do scribal errors and textual variants significantly impact any teaching of Jesus or important Christian teaching? No, they don't. It is the great number of manuscripts, the great antiquity of many of them, and their verbal agreement that lead most textual critics, among them the late Bruce Metzger, to conclude that the critical editions of the Greek text in use today, and you'll hear different numbers, 98%, 99%, some lower percentages, match with the originals. I should note that the New Testament translation in the King James Version of 1611 is based on the Greek text edited by Erasmus in 1516, first edition, and he did 2 or 3 more editions later. Most of his Greek manuscripts, and he only had a few, date to the 12th and 13th centuries. They're not very old, not by today's standards. By today's standards, they're rather recent. In the 500 years or so since Erasmus's first edition, we've recovered thousands of texts, including full copies of the Greek New Testament that date to the 4th century, some 8 centuries older than what Erasmus had to work with. We also have substantial portions of the New Testament that date back to the end of the 2nd century. What we have found is a remarkably stable text. No Christian teaching of any significance has been impacted or affected by the discovery of these much older texts that take us back to within a century or so of the original writings. Just to comment briefly on the remark on 1 John 5, that's true. Some scribe tampered with 1 John 5, verses 7 and 8, to make them reflect Trinitarian teaching. That's undeniable. Even Erasmus himself suspected that. And of course, when we found older manuscripts, that tampered text disappeared. And what you see in your Bible, unless it's an old edition of the King James, reflects that. In fact, the Trinity doctrine preceded the variant. It was the Trinity doctrine that created the variant, not the other way around. The variant in 1 John 5 didn't give rise to the Trinity. The Trinity was hammered out through mostly inference from various passages touching on the divinity of Jesus and the nature of the Godhead and so forth. Remember, the Greek councils in the history of the church took place in the 4th, 5th, and 6th centuries. The vigorous theological debates that took place in these councils could have provided the motive to adjust the text here or there in order to find support for one's position. Therefore, finding manuscripts that predate these great councils, where crucial issues relating to Christology and the Trinity were hammered out, was important, so that we would know if the text of the Greek New Testament had been altered by theological interests. Well, we have found several manuscripts that predate these councils. What have we found? The same text. There are many minor variants, to be sure, but it is nevertheless the same text. We do not find a different view of God in the pre-council text, or a different Jesus, or a different understanding of salvation and atonement. What we find is the same text.